All right,
What's
so
up,
today,
bro?
do you have a job or do you have a real estate business? The key to
Yes,
unlocking freedom for you, your family, and probably your sanity.
agreed. Agreed. I want to start out by saying that my water isn't working, and and that's why Jake looks so sharp, and I look like you know
If
I
you
just got
would,
out of a hot tub because that's what I did.
if you wouldn't have said anything, no one would have known.
Oh, you don't think?
Mm-mm.
I know,
So,
Jake. I know.
this has been a conversation. So when I got back, I was diving in all over the place, feeling a little bit discombobulated. And there was all kinds of things that popped up, right? Like the
Back
importance of having systems.
back from where? Nobody knows that you were gone.
Oh, Hawaii.
Yeah.
Yeah, which was awesome. If you've never been to Maui, go to Maui. It is unreal. Um, Try to avoid flash floods, but other than that, you're fine.
Fair
Um,
enough.
so we I get back and it's just systems, right? And this has been like hitting me square in the face for like a week now. And then you were talking about it, and then I see an article 2 days ago about this new brokerage that's worth $1 billion now. It had just raised another $150 million, and on their website it said transforming agents into businesses,
Yeah.
and it just kind of clicked of the people that have the most amount of freedom, the people that have set things up and have the most amount of sanity. Like they're not freaking out about where their next deal is coming from. They're worried about how to go from 100 to 200. 10 in a month is a foregone conclusion. 8 in a month is a foregone conclusion for the work and the systems that they have in place. So like
Right.
the difference of having a business or having a job, like I get that front and center just listening to conversations and having conversations with agents all day, every day, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we started this because we're like, what are some of the core beliefs that we share with us and our customers, right? And how can we like almost like a core value, right, for the business as far as customers are concerned. And I pushed out with, marketing is the key, right, to success in real estate. Most agents don't realize the business that they're in. And I'm still on the fence. And you're like, well, the fact that they need to be a business in general, I think eludes them. And that's kind of the starting point. And, I could probably be swayed either way, but both are paramount. I mean, you have to understand, if you don't know whether or not you have a real estate business, then you don't. And if you're a one person show, then you don't. And if you're on a team, that's a different story. I mean, you have joined a collective, a symbiotic relationship that is allowing you to have resources, and the other members of the team to have resources that you wouldn't otherwise if you didn't join that collective. I always used to say on my team, like if you were trying to hunt an elephant, right? I don't know why elephant. That's just what I picked. Some big creature, right? Would you rather have one spear and just you trying to get it, or would you rather have like 10 people with 10 spears, right, trying to take this beast down? And I don't hunt, by the way, so don't come after me, PETA. But I
I'm in
really
some
don't.
up.
Yeah, yeah. But my point is, a team is a little bit different scenario. But if you're a single agent out there, and even if you have like maybe a partner, if you don't have a clear vision on how your business can be less people dependent and more process dependent, then you're not going to be able to scale. And that's what Jake is. He's realizing there's some holes in his organization as far as the sales team is concerned, due to systems and processes that aren't necessarily in place. Maybe that have been at a time, but attrition occurs. That's just what happens in business. That's why an operations manager is like one of the first awesome hires. That kind of keeps those trains running on time. But let's talk about really the vision of a business, because that's where it begins. Everything begins with an idea. And I remember when I didn't have a business, but I had this realization like, dang, it would sure be nice to be able to leverage myself and my time. And the analogy that I had was a dentist, right? Like dentists or even doctors, they didn't at one time like have the setup that they have now. They would be a one person show, right? But now you go to the dentist and the secretary checks you in, the oral hygienist might clean your teeth or check you out, and then the dentist comes and his time is highly leveraged, right? He might spend, you know, 10, 15 minutes with you when you were there for an hour, getting all the other services that you need. So what did he do? Well, he took the highest and best use of his time, and the difference as he was able to scale or grow, or perhaps even started out like that. I don't know the progression of Dennis, but he was able to push off the dollar productive activities that were less productive to other staff members to specialize in those. And that was kind of the beginning of the aha that I had, like, oh yeah, like maybe I shouldn't be out here hanging signs when I could hire that out, back in the day for $10 an hour, right? Like maybe today it's 15, I don't know. But probably not the best use of my time. Now the danger in that is if you don't use that extra time that you create to do dollar productive activities.
Right. And that's the leverage that you got to set up, right? Like,
yeah.
For Dennis, it's like their key performance indicator was like that I've read in a book was hands in mouth. Like how many mouths can you put your hands in a day? So it was like that was the metric that they were trying to because that's their most dollar productive thing. Like anything else that they're doing isn't what they went to school for years upon years upon years for, you know what I mean? And there's a company called Heartland Dental that actually teams up with dentists to do exactly that, right? And it's just crazy to think of it like when you're setting out to have a business, right? Like if you were going to launch a franchise, right? You got to put so much money and so much capital and you got to have everything in place, but you're going into business. I feel like when most people get into real estate and there he goes, this is Skynet coming over for Odo. So he just moved out into the country a little bit. So he got Elon's new internet, which has like 3 different bands, and he's still trying to figure it out. And he doesn't have internet for 2 hours a day because of a tree, which he will say is false, but I'm saying that on the record. But anyway, hopefully he'll come back here in a second. When you have a business like that where it's a franchise, here he is. 3, 2, 1. Yep, you're back. Hold on. Gotta get you in the stream.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
I told them your Skynet internet.
Nope, I can't hear you.
Oh, bro. Hold on. You stay.
Well, we get an A for effort because
you stay. Hold on one second.
Okay. Yeah, that's part of the deal when you go live. So I'll tell you guys this quick story. After I started to grow a small business in the real estate industry, I was actually in Hawaii, and I don't know if I'm live or not. I'm still talking. Can I still talk?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was going to just tell the story while I was waiting on you. I'm in Hawaii, right? I had grown a small team, and I know I've told you this before. And I'm walking on the beach, and I'm talking to my team back home, and I forget the specifics. Like they closed a deal or two, picked up a listing or two. And while I'm walking down the beach, a 20 comes rolling my way, and the person I'm on the phone with was one of my right-hand people. I pick up this 20. He's like, "Damn, Odo, only you." He's like, "You're in Hawaii. These things are happening. We're bringing in money, and everybody else is picking up seashells. You're picking up 20s." And that was like when I had the epiphany. Like the reality of my life had become the vision that I had, a year or two prior. Right, like when I first started to have this understanding, like I want to have a real estate business instead of a real estate job because it obviously works when you're not there, and that's the goal.
And if you could have the option, right? Like I feel like some people are shortchanged in their vision because of the people that they surround themselves with, right?
Yeah.
Like pretty much everybody I've met has either been that got into the point where they created this team and went on vacations and were able to have things still run smoothly when they were gone for small periods of time. They could do those things, and they had some more freedom, and financially had more freedom because their vision was just a lot bigger. But it was either in 2 categories. One, they were surrounded by people that they saw that was possible and knew that it wasn't like a difference between them and like Shaquille O'Neal playing basketball, right? Like it wasn't that the difference in talent or whatever, smarts, or they were just young or naive enough to be like, I can do whatever I want. It didn't matter. Like I know some people are doing it. I just got to figure out what they're doing, right? And then they surrounded themselves with those people, and then you expand your thinking. But Darren Hardy was talking one time. I don't even know if it was a book or conference or whatever, but he said his biggest epiphany of being leveraged in business versus being a solo entrepreneur that didn't really have any leverage whatsoever, and having a job. He said he went to this mastermind that he probably shouldn't have been a part of at the time. And he was getting on a ski lift with some dude that was like a multimillionaire. And he said, Darren, do you know the difference between me and you right before they were getting on the ski lift? And he was like, well, I mean, there's quite a few. And he was like, the biggest difference I'll tell you by the time we get to when we get to the top of the ski lift. And so they talk, small talk, whatever. They get to the top, and then Darren's like, okay, so what was it? He was like, difference is you from when we got on and I asked you that question till now, I made money and you didn't make anything. And he was like, it's leverage. Like that's how you multiply and scale and all that fun stuff. But that realization for real estate agents, I feel like a lot of times just going around the country with Kinder one time, I remember he used to ask people like questions like, do you think this is possible? And people didn't even know it was possible, right? Like I thought I had to make all the phone calls. I thought I had to do this. I thought I had to do that because they've never seen it or they've never been around someone that has done it. So they don't even know that it's possible,
Well, and I think that the part of the, I don't know about you and anybody else out there, but thinking like that, it can be overwhelming. I mean, you and I were having a discussion about a big picture thing last night, and I was like, man, when it's that big, paralysis by analysis, you don't tend to jump, because you don't know where to start. And so I think that really, I got some good advice early on from a guy named John Tillman. He was like, hey, what you need to do is get a glass of wine and just have a vision of what you would want your business to look like. And I was like, look like? What does that mean? And I had to hear it like from different people over and over and over again before it finally clicked. And I think the advice that I would give there is, if you were to start writing down basically just an org chart, like who would be in your organization, what would they do, what would be your first hire, and as you continue to scale, right? Like, what else would you enterprise and segment off? My dad made fun of me for a long time because I hate mowing, and I don't mow my own grass. And he's like, "Oh, I knew guys like you, don't mow their own grass." And I'm like, "Well, Dad, if I stop to do that, that means it would cost me, over here." And I always remembered Bill Gates, saying if I stopped to pick up $100, it would actually cost me money. That was like mind blowing to me. Like, how is that even possible, right? But the point that he was making is staying focused on the highest dollar productive activities that you can, are paramount, because even just losing focus to go walk over and pick up that Hyundai would be worse trying to get back to where you were, right? And for him, it would certainly be the duration of time, the few seconds, right, would like cost him more. But that's a shift in thinking that needs to occur. Master of none is what a lot of agents get in the business do, and there's no training. They don't know how, they don't know why. You're shifting something on the screen, Jake. I don't know what it is.
You remember that bad boy?
Yeah.
Trying to get it to. I'm gonna go solo for a second. Right. So like, the minute you started saying that, I was like, oh, this. When you're talking about org chart.
Yeah.
Whenever I showed people this, what I always told people is this is a real estate business, and if it's just you, you're responsible for all of those things.
Right.
Which is why you feel, even if you're doing 12 deals, if you're doing 20 deals, if you're doing 8 deals, you can feel maybe more overwhelmed than agents that do hundreds of deals.
Yeah.
Because they're responsible for all of them, right, in a leadership role, but they aren't doing all of them, and it is such a mind shift when you can think of them like actual positions that you are fulfilling right now because you have a business, right? It is, as long as there's not money coming out of your check when for taxes because you're a 1099 employee, right, or a contractor, right? You
Mm-hmm.
business, right? So you're doing all of these things. You might have something brokerage wise that helps you with some of it, but you're responsible for all those things, which you wear all of those hats, which is why it's so hard for you to switch sometimes, right? And that's just
Yeah.
it's hard.
It is, but it doesn't have to be. And you know, you eat an elephant. Again, I don't know why I'm so down on elephants. One bite at a time, right? So, like, what are you going to start with? I personally, I loved. I think it was in the book, The Power of Focus, but he talks about anything that doesn't really bring you joy. He's like, if you don't like doing laundry, don't do laundry. He's like, it's that simple, you know. I mean, if your dog can sleep in the middle of the day, you can too, right? Like, it's kind of like, you know, whatever you want, right? But the truth is, there are things that don't bring me joy, that cause me anxiety. Like, you know, for example, mowing the dang lawn. If the lawn starts to get disheveled, and I know I got to mow it, but I got a bunch of other things on my plate, like, it's going to cause me anxiety, right? So if you don't like, you know, maybe the closing coordination side, or if you don't like, you know what I mean, like those might be some things that you start with by hiring an assistant first, right? And if you don't you know, if you don't have an assistant, I remember an old saying, I think it was Proctor one. He's like, understand you really do. It's you, right? Like, you're the assistant. So, you know, the key is, like, who you are is not who you will need to become in order to get to be, you know, where you want to be. Because in that journey, in that process, you learn how to create business systems. You learn how to manage people. You learn how to hire. You learn how to train. And it's just a wonderful journey of an entrepreneur. And I guess that's really the key. Like, do you want to be an entrepreneur, or do you want to, you know, have more of a steady gig in the real estate space? If you want something more steady, I would highly recommend going and joining a team. You
Right.
know, if you, yeah, have the entrepreneurial gene and you want to go test your metal, that's pretty much the first place I'd start, was an org chart and hiring an assistant. The danger with an assistant, like, the first thing that came to mind is, if it takes you as long to tell them what to do as it is for you to just do it, like, maybe you shouldn't be delegating that, you know, unless you're going to teach them how to do it so you never have to do it again. That's
Exactly. And I want to make a kind of big distinction, because like it felt like when I went to the 9 box, like it felt like, okay, hey, we're preaching to the team, right? Like, in order to have a real estate business, you have to have a real estate team. And that's not exactly true. Because, like, for me, always starts with the numbers, right? Like, as a business person, business owner, you should always want to know the numbers first, because, like, men lie, women lie, numbers don't. And for you to be able to make educated business decisions, you have to have real data, right? To be able to make the right decisions. But always starts with the numbers. And I feel like that's probably the biggest shift. And it was funny because I saw live with Kinder and Kitchens the other day. And I was just scrolling through Facebook, and I just caught a part where it was like, you got to know your numbers and do. And I'm talking to a lady that's doing 40 and she wants to get to 100 or something like that, or 100 and trying to go to 200. So she's making a ton of money, but starts with reverse engineering exactly what you do, having the systems in place, blah, 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 right? And then I was listening to a webinar yesterday, completely different, that's real estate, right? Completely different industry, right? Like, they're talking about consulting and that kind of stuff. And he was like, well, you know, and as businessers and marketers, we always start with the numbers, right? And I was like, right, like that's the biggest difference, right? Is
well, how would you
your numbers, but being able to really use them the right way to make decisions.
Right. So, but it's esoteric. Like, how do you tactically, like, pull that down to somebody who's like, yeah, maybe I should have more of a real estate business, you know?
So start with a goal, and then it's reverse engineering it from there, right? So and then
Wait. Unpack that a little more.
I'm trying to do it, right?
Oh,
So
okay.
if you start with a goal, let's say you want to just close on 100 or 50 or 20, right? We'll start with 20 just for easy math. If I say, okay, I did 10 transactions last year, it's my second year in real estate, I want to do 20 this year. Like, you got to know where those 10 came from, right? And so, like, people that have been around for a while, I feel like you can kind of get within probably 10%, knowing how many people are going to get referred to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Without having to, you know, invest crazy into ice cream socials or whatever people do. I'm not even sure. but in not spending a whole lot of time trying to fluctuate that. The key then shifts to lead generation, right? And we've gone through this just in a lot of research of all of these companies and real estate companies and looking at their like P&Ls and all of their numbers, like financials. And it is uncanny how many companies, no matter how many hundreds of millions or billions of dollars, how many companies are right around that like 25 to 35% that go into sales and marketing numbers, right? To continue.
Right.
And so they would never be able to reach the status that they're at of billion-dollar companies without investing heavily into lead generation and marketing and sales, right? So if you
well, I mean, like, we don't have to be coy about it. Like, we were specifically looking at Zillow's financials, and they grew 100% year over year. And we looked; it was like 50% of their bottom line, or something. You probably remember more than me. Went towards sales and marketing, which was staggering, right? Like, especially because like the lion's share that went to marketing.
And the insane thing is the last year that it's public, so they haven't released 2020 yet, as in like an annual report. I'm sure they've done their 10 or K10, whatever. But their last one was 2019, where they did $2.8 billion in revenue. Which, if you guys don't know this, like they're worth $40+ billion now. They did $2.8 billion in revenue. And that year, 2019, they spent like $750 million in sales and marketing.
Well, they were able to actually scale it back on a percentage level as they grew, which is what occurs, But I think from a number standpoint, you're right. If you're going to ever partner with another agent, have another agent, whether you're a team or you're starting a brokerage or what have you, you have to have more business for yourself than you can comfortably service, so that excess that you're not getting to is then captured and monetized. The big mistake that I see a lot of times is an agent will go and they'll partner with somebody to form a team, and then they split their commissions 50-50. Well, one person is going to be the more seasoned, tenured of the two, most likely, and going to be doing most of the work. And now you just literally cut your income in half with somebody who's going to bring back less than half to the table. And that is usually a failing proposition. And so, you have to have value if you're going to hire another agent. And generally, that's always going to be around being able to deliver them business, right? If you're an independent or if you're a team, if you're in the brokerage game, of course, there's different value props for that. But even that, in general, like, most agents are always going to gravitate to where there's going to be a system in place that is a success system that allows them to have success, right? And doesn't fail unless they fail to follow the system. And that's really a lot of times what agents crave. And so, there's one or two, like you're either one or the other. You're either the person who is going to provide that, or you're the person who is desiring that, and both are achievable. But being in the middle sucks. Being in the middle where you don't know which one, and you don't have the business, and you don't have consistency, and especially right now, like, if you're not just killing it in this market, oh man, you need to make some changes fast, because this is the most incredible market that I've ever seen in the history of my 20 years being licensed. I mean, it's unbelievable. I just don't even know how it's happening still and continuing. And I don't even know what the cause for it necessarily, other than the lack of supply, because the interest rates have been low for a while, long time.
I know. And it is like completely, if you would have said worldwide pandemic hits, like real estate craze would not have followed anybody like projections, right?
Oh, well, like a year ago, yeah, we were talking about
we did a lot
to do when these people's payment deferral arrangements, hit them, right? And like how to prepare for a flood of inventory. Like, got that one wrong.
Got that way wrong. And
I'm very grateful to be wrong there too. By the way,
exactly. Of all the things to be wrong, we are happy. But like, to your point, like, and I get all fired up. Like, this is probably the most passionate I get is when we talk about numbers and stuff, because for me, it's just my lifeblood, right? Like, I'm a numbers person already. So once we talk about like numbers, like, it's so much easier to manage numbers than people, right? Like, managing people is hard. Bringing in emotion, like, makes you make bad decisions, business wise. and it's a lot easier to hold people accountable to numbers, right? Which is why I always say start with the numbers, and it always has to start with a goal. So going back to the 20 goal, right? Like if I say I can count on 5 of those, no matter what, to come from my sphere or referrals or whatever, right? Then I've got a plan for 15. And if I want to ensure I hit my goal, if I have like a 1 to 3% closing percentage off of leads that I can generate online, I would want to be conservative and go with the 1%, not the 3%, and say that's how many leads I need, right? And then you can break it down more minute of how many people you actually met with face to face, which is the next probably metric that I would get to.
Definitely.
And then I would just have a plan there that broke down monthly of how many people I needed to, how many leads I needed to have, how many people I needed to meet with, and I was either on pace or off pace. And if I was off pace, I would fix it.
Right, but the important part of that is, a lot of times, the important part of that is once you do that, now you have a formula, now you have a system, now you have value to bring to the marketplace to, recruit somebody else and show them the path, right? And I think that as an entrepreneur, like we have that craving, that desire to add value to the world, and you're like building a step, like on a series of steps for the next person to be able to hop on and have success as well. And the cool thing about it also is it's in your market, so it's like, yeah, this definitely works. Like, this is how I did this. This is how I'm doing this. I will show you as well.
It's like it's just such a great feeling when you crack a funnel, when you got something that's just like, okay, I can predictably say,
it's winning.
Oh my God, it feels so great. Like you have no idea. Like the anxiety I get just talking to people that I'm like, okay, so what's your goal? And they're like, man, I'd like to double. And I'm like, okay, why is that important? And like, I'm taking them down this exercise that they really should be doing themselves. But once I get to it, it's like, okay, so what's the plan? And it's like, like there is no plan. Like failing to plan is planning to fail, and you will fail to hit your goal, and you'll stay in this I'm not doing bad enough to get out of real estate, but I'm not doing good enough to do all the things that I've always wanted to do with my life, right? And you start to settle, and you start to tell stories, and like your ego is protecting you from itself, right? Of like telling you all the reasons why this person blew up that you were in a class with, that now he's got a team and he's doing 100 deals and blah, 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 blah. Like, I would want to like shake everybody and be like, hey,
oh yeah, they're just lucky, or they just have this, or they just have that, or they're connected to a big church, for example,
right. His dad was in real estate, this was that, you know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah, that's everybody always thought that was my deal, like, oh, his dad, and I'm like, my dad never had a license. Like, what are you talking about?
And we grew up in Omaha. We're in a different state, right?
Oh yeah.
But you see these things, and it's like it's just your ego doing it, and you've got to train yourself. Like I mean, like we could go back and be like, it all starts with mindset, right? But like,
I think it starts with a vision, Jake. I think it starts with an idea that you just continue to meditate on and crystallize till you start to take action. And as you take action, pretty soon, it became real. Dan Kennedy's saying is your positioning becomes your position. And I remember sitting at the lake with Shreves, 15 years ago, and I whip out my platinum card and it says MikeOtoTeam.com on it, and he's like, damn, Oto, your positioning really became your position. He's like, you did it, man. And I was like, wow. I don't think of it like that, but thank you. Like, I still got a lot to do, buddy. I'm not quite there.
But everybody that came in that was like a fresh new agent that came in to an office that you were working in or onto your team had a natural advantage over most all real estate agents because of what they could see was possible and seeing workings. Like when I first started into this great industry of real estate, like I didn't know the difference between a real estate agent and a realtor at the time, or how I pronounced it at the time, realtor.
Is there a difference?
I mean, whatever. But I was having this weird realization of like all this stuff that was happening. But I was learning from Jay and Mike, who Jay's best year was selling 500 and whatever, and Mike's best year he sold a few hundred. And like I was like, okay, so it's probably pretty normal to sell 50 to 100 houses, right? And so when I started talking to people and they were doing like 20, I was like, man, are you brand new? Like what's your story, right? Part time.
What's wrong?
What? Right? And then like I was like offending people, and I was like, oh shoot. And then I was like, part of the presentation was like 8 to 12 was the average agent, transaction wise across the country. And I was like, oh no way, wow, I've been really rude to people. Just
well, you came from a sales background too, because anything that you sell. I mean, if you sold cars and you're like, I sell like 8 to 12 cars a year at the dealership, like what? Like it's hard to fathom, but it's such a big transaction that you can still make good money if you sell 20 houses a year.
Yeah.
But I'd say if you're doing under that, if you're doing under a couple deals a month, then it's just a lack of learning what you need to learn in order to get you there. And I think you're right. I think the best thing would be to start with essentially lead gen in the numbers for yourself, to build the system so that you can master the system, delegate it to another agent, and now you've got your first essentially employee.
Yep. And where people mess up all the time that I see is they skip that step of like proving out the system. And go straight to trying to have an agent that they give it to, and you're just teeing yourself up to lose a lot of money. And in actual money out of your bank account.
And let me I wasn't going to tell the story, but my first hire in the real estate business was I guess I hired her as an assistant, right? Like secretarial role. And she ended up becoming basically my operations manager. She was just an awesome, dynamic person, like much more talented than I realized at the time. But, like I would hover over her. I remember I was paying her $7 an hour. And like, that was a lot of money to me. And I was like, I'm gonna make sure I get my $7 an hour worth. I'm gonna kind of stick around, see what she's doing, And then once I got on trust level, I was able to bounce. So after I hired my second agent, in the business, second or third, what had happened was he started using her as his personal assistant. And so she's like, hey, Mike, he's called me and asked me to do this. And I was like, well, it was like one of those things that I just said. Well, he could have done it himself faster than calling her and asking her to do it. So it was like a clout thing for him, like he wanted to have. And so, this was my money, right? He was using this resource that I was paying for. So I had to call him and nip it right away. I'm like, listen, dude, this isn't your personal assistant. Here's her roles and responsibilities. Luckily, I had those dialed in. And I told her the same thing. I was like, hey, don't do that. That's not your job. Right. If he asks you to do anything outside of the roles and responsibilities that we had put together, right, then come back to me so I can reel him in as well. She's like, oh, thank you. Obviously I'm not dealing with somebody who's just, trying to figure this out. You've put some thought into this, which is also attractive to people that you want to attract and hire. Yep. And, I had her systemize every single thing that she did, right? I'm about to do this with our customer service role, right? I'm gonna sit out there next week with them for an entire week, capture every single thing that they do. And then I'm going to systemize everything that we can basically use technology for without losing quality, right? So if they're sending an email on a regular basis and it's not a form email that they just hit a button, boom, right? Like little teeny increments. Maybe it saves a few minutes here, a few minutes there, but those compound tremendously. And so, I sat with her because I was having her create the system. I was like, okay, now watch me do this. Now here's how you input a listing. So you go over here, you click this, right? So write that down. Then you go over here and you do this. Now write that down. Now you go over here and do this. And then after, I would have her do it from the notes that she made, right? So now I'm watching her do it. And then after that, I would say, okay, now take all those notes, clean them up, and we're going to make them into an operations manual. And that was that position. And I just did that over and over and over with every position. I still use those skills to this day in everything that we do, right? When somebody buys Market Maker, it used to be you push a button. Now, when the credit card goes through, the button's automatically pushed. Everybody gets their different jobs, different tasks, because it takes like 5 or 6 people to touch an account to get one pushed out live from the developers, customer service people, right? Pay-per-click. I mean, the whole 9 yards. And what has occurred is attrition, right, in some of those systems. So I got to go back in and tinker, right, get it all dialed in, then throw it back to Pat and say, okay, here's the new way that we're going to keep the trains running and make sure they stay.
Let's do it, right? It's that skill set, but that's becoming a business owner, right? Like Reason why people pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to buy franchises and stuff is because that work has already been done.
Well, and your likelihood of failure is significantly decreased. I mean, it's almost nil, especially the way they vet the franchise right? Like, so I was looking at a Taco John's franchise. Do you guys have Taco John's?
Mm-mm.
No, it's like a Taco Bell knockoff. They're all over Nebraska. I love them. I love them. There's one in Lebanon, Missouri, which is like on the way to Lake of the Ozarks, and I got to go off this off-beaten path, and I go there, right, for these tacos that I used to get as a kid. They were 3 for $1. Anyway, $500,000 liquid, million net worth in order to qualify, right? So like you get somebody that has $500,000 net worth, million in or liquid, million in net worth. They've probably done some things right, and they're probably not going to fail, right, if they follow the system that is, laid out for them.
And what happens if you don't follow the system?
You're going to fail.
You're going to fail, and
not only that, they're going to yank your franchise.
Exactly, they're going to pull you too, right?
Yeah, you can't open a Taco John's and start serving fried chicken, right?
Exactly, because it's for them the brand to protect and the process and all that fun stuff. But it's so funny. You have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to buy that. Right. And in real estate, you can get it. I mean, some people just give it away, like all their secrets,
Well, I was just looking for a relative, and I was like, hey, he actually brought it to me. I don't know what the net revenues are, but I would be shocked if you open one of those and it was more than a couple $100,000, you know what I mean? And like net revenue for you as a business owner. Mm-hmm. I'd be shocked even if it was that high. If it was 100,000, that I'd say probably be pretty good. And you're right. In real estate, like we can net $100,000, right, in year 2 or 3 with much, much less capital outlay. But it takes thinking like a business owner. It takes creating, a franchise prototype. And it takes you doing it first, right? Like you have to be the pioneer there. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, make it up as you go. You just have to find the first system. And I think the first system, Jake, you're right, is always going to be sales and marketing for any business. Right?
And for us, I mean, like, you just have to surround yourselves with the right people. Like, it's cool being able to jump on here. Like, we don't get it very often, but if I was somebody, if I was a real estate agent right now, and I was trying to become more of a business owner, my little booty would be on here asking questions to you because you've done it, right? Like, we talked about this last night, right? Like,
yeah.
If you had access to somebody that has done what you're trying to do, like, it's a good idea to utilize that resource, right?
Well, and what we were specifically saying is, like, I still do that to this day. I go seek those people out. I don't care if they want me to or not. I'm not shy. Like, they might tell me get out of here, but I'm going to ask some questions and see. I when I was in and we got to wrap this up. We're almost out of time. But when I was in Northern California, I had to drive through Facebook and Google's headquarters. Because I just had to see like what was possible, right? Like I just had to visualize and see like what that kind of a business was able to grow and look like, and just drive through the parking lot, look at the building, like I think curiosity is like a huge component of an entrepreneur, and just wondering what's possible, wondering what you're able to do, and you'll find like you might be able to do a lot more than you ever had dreamed. You might find that you're not able to do what you thought you were able to do, but it's okay. You shoot for the stars, catch the moon on the way down, or on the way. I mean, that's not a bad proposition either.
Yep. And I just if you can take anything away, get a good goal, rethink what's actually possible for you, like what actually would make you excited to get up and work towards every single day. Not just a rat race, not just like why you suffer through having to put in 18 offers right now for your buyers and stuff that are just getting whooped right now. Like, it makes it all better when you have a good goal in mind and what that means for you personally, and then just start with the numbers, reverse engineer it, get into having a system that you can predictably say, if I generated 1,000 leads over here, I'm going to get at least 10 deals over here, potentially 30 if I can really tweak my skill set, right? So it's there, right? Plenty of people have done it. Plenty of people continue to do it. It's there. Just go get you some,
And oftentimes, we look within our market, and I think that's a mistake. look outside of your market, right? Like people outside of your market are not going to be fearful to talk to you about how they run their business because you're not you're not competition. You're not a threat. So anyway, like we said, you want to start with the marketing. If you want some help with that, that's what we do at Market Maker. Go to marketmakercall.com, check it out, see if yours is available, and if it is, we'll help you.
Yes, sir. And as we always say at Market Maker, you are always just one pre-position appointment away.
Every day.
Every day, go get it.